Welcome to Living in Austin, Texas channel. I'm Aubrey Von Behren with Douglas Elliman Real Estate, and today I'm going to tell you a little bit more about the cost of living in Austin, Texas in 2023. Now, some of these may surprise you, so let's just go ahead and jump right in. Costs you need to know about when living in Austin, Texas are the home prices. Now, Austin is actually about 15% higher in terms of home prices than the rest of the country. With that being said, don't worry, there are still so many areas on the outskirts of Austin. So if you don't live in the city center, you can get so much for your money in many of these suburban areas. So Cedar Park and the Leander vicinity, which are about 20 minutes northwest of Austin, actually fall about 7 to 8% below the national average. Very nice homes, lots of square footage, nice yard sizes, and newer communities with a lot of amenities. So pools, parks, playgrounds, all of the things that you could possibly want and more for below the national average. So although the home prices have gone up to Austinites who've been in the area for a very long time, you are still like a kid in a candy shop if you're coming from places like California and New York, which we have a big influx of people from those states because you can get so much more for your money, especially if you're outside of the city center. So although Austin actually sits above the national average in terms of home prices, it is very important to note that that could change slightly over the coming year in 2023. We have begun to see a normalization in our market. Prices have decreased a little bit, and it has certainly stabilized over the last 6 months as interest rates have risen. So we may see some changes in this upcoming year of 23, where buyers have continued leverage in terms of negotiating, getting better deals on properties. It is important to note it's still very much a seller's market in terms of our level of inventory. So still a very, very good time to sell, but overall a much more enjoyable experience for both buyers and sellers. It's less of a frenzy, it's more of a level playing field, and it makes for a much more enjoyable home buying experience, which is how it should be. The second cost you need to know about when living in Austin, Texas are the property taxes. Now, we do have higher property taxes relative to other states and real estate. With that being said, we do not have a state income tax, so our overall tax burden is actually very low compared to other states throughout the country. With that being said, property taxes average about 2 to 2.5% of the tax assessed value, which I won't get too into the weeds with this, but the tax assessed value is typically lower than the market value. There is a fluctuation there, so they are two very different things. Feel free to leave any questions in the comments, and I'm happy to elaborate. But about half of the property tax rate goes towards the local public independent school district. And it is also very important to note that there are special tax exemptions that you can take advantage of. If it is your primary residence, Texas offers a homestead exemption that will save you a fair percentage in property taxes each year. You only have to file it once. It's very, very easy to do. Now, if you're a veteran or you're over 65, you can also take advantage of other exemptions in that way too. So there are a lot of little tips and tricks to lower your tax burden, although we do have property taxes on our real estate here in Texas. Again, this channel is all about what it's like living in Austin, Texas. We want to show you the behind the scenes and everything in between. Be sure to hit that like button so that it helps other people just like you find this information a little more easily. And while you're at it, go ahead and hit the subscribe button and notification bell so that you're notified of all of the new videos that I put out for you each week. My name is Aubrey Von Behren, and I'm a local real estate broker here in Austin, Texas. I have so many people just like you calling, texting, emailing, reaching out about their move to Austin and asking for help. So if that's you, feel free to call, email, text, however you'd like to get a hold of me. I would absolutely love to talk more with you about what it's like living in Austin, Texas. Go ahead and look in the description below. There's a link to create a Zoom appointment with me. I would love to talk more. All right, the third cost you're going to want to know about living in Austin is related to HOAs or homeowners associations. In most of the newer neighborhoods outside of the city center, you will be part of an HOA, which some people either seem to love or hate. Nonetheless, it is an additional expense if you're living in one of those communities. On average, it's anywhere from $40 to $60, depending on the community and depending on the amenities offered. So this would be the cost for a single family home community. If you live in a condo association or townhomes, those HOA dues are typically higher because they're going to be taking care of most of your exterior maintenance, if not all. Now, with a lot of these HOAs in the newer master plan communities outside of Austin and a lot of the suburban neighborhoods, you will get a ton of amenities for that low monthly cost. So this could include things like pools, parks, playgrounds, hiking and biking trails. So many of these new master plan communities have all of those things factored in and designed into the community, which makes it a big draw for a lot of people. So I think all in all, it's a very low monthly expense for what you typically get in return. But reach out to me, let me know what communities you may be interested in, and I can tell you a little bit more about the HOAs and what you get in terms of dues and amenities for each of those. The next cost you need to know about are the toll roads. Now, for the most part, Austin is not filled with toll roads, but in some of the newer areas, tolls have been constructed over the last few years. There are about a handful, I'd say 4 or so in the greater Austin area. There's one that's out east, so it runs to the airport all the way north to Georgetown, services the Manor area too, if you're looking at a map. It's really nice. It runs to Tesla all the way to the airport. Now, one of the things I would recommend if you are living in an area that requires you to travel the toll roads often is to get a Texas tag. Now, this is as simple as going to the texastag.com website. You're able to put this tag on your car like in most states and link your credit card to it, or prepay a certain amount so that it'll just take from that tag each time you're on the toll road. And this is also a little bit of a cost savings to you, so there is an incentive to sign up for a Texas tag. Now, there is another highway, MOPAC, that runs north and south, and this is just west of downtown. And this has been in existence for many, many years since Austin has been around. But what happened recently, because there's a lot of congestion that has taken place on MOPAC with our growth in the city, there was actually a toll lane that was added. So it's an express lane that you can pay for. The rate fluctuates depending on the time of day, but I would highly recommend traveling this lane because you will not be sitting in traffic most of the time, even during rush hour times. But pay attention, see if it fits within your budget, because the rates do fluctuate to take that toll lane during those peak hours. But that will also fall within the Texas tag. So if you get a Texas tag, it takes the thought out of pretty much everything, especially if you're traveling those toll roads for the most part during the day. The fifth cost you should know about in Austin, Texas is parking. Now, for the most part, you don't have to pay for parking in a lot of the areas, especially when you're outside of the city core. For the most part, you do have to pay for parking when you're in and around downtown. Now, that's mostly street parking or garage parking if you're in downtown or some of these residential areas. If you're on South Congress, which is a very popular spot with a lot of shops, restaurants, there's a view of the Capitol. If you're on the true section of South Congress, there's nice back-end parking that you do not have to pay for. Once you cross over the bridge though, and you're in downtown, all of the street parking is paid only and all of the garages are paid. Now, if you are working downtown, it's also important to note that you're going to have to pay for those garages to use them. Now, oftentimes if your company is located down there, they're going to be providing a monthly parking pass of some sort for you and comping that expense. If they're not though, you may want to look into some of the companies that provide paid monthly parking passes, and that averages about $135 a month. But that will really help so you're not fighting for parking downtown, whether it's in a garage or street parking every day for work. And maybe you can negotiate with your company too, whether or not they'll pay for that expense if they don't have designated parking already. If If you are venturing around downtown, a lot of it is street parallel parking too, which is all paid for. You can usually do a lot of this through your mobile app, pay for extra hours. They usually have hour limitations, so just pay attention to that. It's not a very outrageous cost. It's definitely cheaper to park on the street than it is in some of the garages. Some of the garages now seem to be about $20 as a flat fee for a few hours. If you're there for any longer, it could be as much as $40. So if you're going out to dinner downtown where you're going to be out for a few hours or even catching a show, just pay attention to that if that fits within your budget or not, because those parking garages and some of the paid parking has gotten to be a lot more expensive than when I first moved to Austin. Now, depending on the type of property you're in, home maintenance costs will fluctuate with each property. If you're purchasing a single family home, then I would say that most of the single family homes in Austin will have some sort of a yard. Some are larger than others, especially if you're moving out to the suburbs, 20 to 30 minutes outside of Austin where there's a little more space. If that's the case, then you're probably going to have about a fifth to a third of an acre with a lot of grass that you're going to want to mow. So there's typically a cost associated with that if you're not wanting to take the time to do it yourself. I have about a third of an acre that I live on over in the Lake Travis area. And to maintain that, because I actually oddly really loved mowing the yard, which is kind of strange, but because I just ran out of time to do it and it wasn't looking as good, I had to hire somebody a few years back. So I pay $50 a week for them to mow about a third of an acre. And I would say that's the going rate for most areas too. Now, some other ideas that I've seen a lot of people do lately is xeriscape a lot of the yard. So that could be, gravel, hardscaping of some sort, drought resistant plants, things of that nature that you're not really having to maintain. And by not having to maintain this, it really cuts down on the cost too. And it just really looks good for the most part year round. Now, the other thing to consider is if your property has a pool or not, or if you plan on installing a pool. There is, of course, maintenance with a pool in addition to the utility costs associated with it. I personally don't have a pool, although I would love to have one, but friends and family who do tell me that the going rate is about $200 a month to have a good pool service, come and make sure that the water and chemicals are balanced and then it's always clean for you. So this is about $200 a month. If you have a lawn service, depending on the size of the property, you're probably looking at about another $200 a month also if they come each week. You can, of course, do it bi-monthly. Just find something that fits within your budget. But those are typical expenses, home maintenance expenses for living in Austin. Now, what's really nice too, and it cuts back on some of the home maintenance, is that we don't have extreme seasons. So in areas like Colorado, Utah, or other places throughout the country where it snows, you have to shovel snow. You have to prep your property a little bit differently. Here in Austin, if we have snow, it's definitely an anomaly, although it has happened a little bit over the last couple of years. But with that being said, because we don't really have those extreme temperatures and climates throughout the year, there's a little less you have to do in terms of preparing your home for those conditions, and that certainly cuts down on cost as well. The seventh cost we're going to talk about today are grocery items. So the great news is that Austin and the surrounding areas actually sit below the national average. We're sitting about 12% below the national average in all of those areas. Now, we have a wonderful grocery store chain called H-E-B that's been in existence for many, many years. We have multiple locations throughout Austin and Texas for that matter. The prices are wonderful. So we have H-E-B as our main grocery store chain, in addition to a lot of the other offerings like Costco, Sam's Club, some of the bulk buy type places too. But yes, the good news is we have very nice grocery stores, and our average cost is sitting about 12% lower than the national average. So definitely much more affordable in terms of your day-to-day necessities and grocery items. Let's talk about the gas prices in Austin, Texas. Now, as a whole, the gas prices have always been much more affordable in Texas than throughout a lot of the other states in the country, especially the states located on the coast too. So right now we're sitting at about $2.80, $2.95 for the cost of gas, which is relatively affordable compared to many of the other states that I'm hearing about. Now, I'm always very curious though, because I know it's been a big topic of conversation lately. So please let me know in the comments what the cost of gas is in your city or state right now and how it compares to Austin, Texas. So as you might also know or have heard, Tesla is also headquartered in Austin now. So you'll start to see a lot of Teslas on the road. I actually have one myself, which may be my favorite car to date. That is not going to be a topic of this conversation though. But if you are considering a Tesla, you'll fit right in here in the Austin area, and it will certainly impact your gas costs for the better. Our electricity and utility costs, which I'll talk about next, are actually historically lower than the national average as well. So all of that certainly helps. But we are sitting right about $2.80 to $2.95 right now for the cost of gas. So definitely very manageable. The eighth important cost to know about living in Austin, Texas is related to utilities. So for the most part, you cannot select your energy provider except in a couple of areas located in Round Rock. If there are any others that you guys know about, please leave them in the comments below. But if you're located in Austin, it's primarily covered by City of Austin or Austin Energy. Same with many parts out west towards Lake Travis and those areas. But for the most part, all areas only allow you to pull from one utility provider in those locations. Now, with that being said, the good news is that most of these providers are sitting at about 7% less than the national average. So you can expect your utility costs to be a lot lower than in many other states throughout the country. What's also really nice now too, especially if you're moving to some of the more suburban areas with newer construction, is your utility costs are going to be a lot lower because of the types of building materials that builders are using to construct these homes. City code requirements now are very different for these building standards, so there is much more energy efficiency in a lot of the newer homes. So if you do want to take advantage of that, please reach out to me. I'm happy to tell you a little bit more about the builders in the area, and that can definitely play a big role into cutting back on your utility costs. But as a whole, in the greater Austin metro, you can expect to pay about 7 to 8% lower than the national average in terms of utility costs, which is great news. Guys, this is all about living in Austin, Texas. As a reminder, I'm a licensed real estate broker here in the Austin, Texas area. And as much as I love making these videos for you each week, I would love even more to assist with all of your real estate needs. So call, text, email, schedule a time to talk via the link below. I would love to answer any questions about moving to or living in the Austin metro area. So reach out anytime, would love to connect.